Hey everyone, welcome back to another Executive Table Talk. My name is JT O'Donnell. I'm the founder and CEO of Work It Daily. And today we're going to be talking about the 3 signs CEO isolation is hurting your ability to lead your business successfully. This happens to be a subject near and dear to the heart of my guest today. She is no stranger to Executive Table Talk. She is one of our amazing Vistage chairs that is part of our monthly series called CEO Table Talk. Her name is Kirsten, and I'm going to bring her right up to the stage right now. Kirsten, thank you so much for joining us today on this.
Welcome. Thank you.
So look, you have your own amazing leadership journey all the way up to you now coaching CEOs on a daily basis. Tell us that story.
Oh, sure, JT. I became a leader not because people thought I should be a leader or I thought that this was my lifelong dream. But I ran into situations and places where the opportunity was to step into a leadership role and no one around me was stepping up. And so my actual first formal leadership role, I was 22 and I led a team of clinicians at a private school for children with special needs. And I ended up spending almost 2 decades with that company, exiting as the CEO. And leadership mentors that I've had over the years, really have taught me about hard work, doing what was right when no one was watching, and a lot of persistence in the face of challenge. And I can trace that back to my earliest memories as a child. So my mother left an alcoholic father or husband, my father. My mother left her alcoholic husband with 2 small children, and she traveled thousands of miles across the country to where we live now and to give us a new life. And throughout my childhood, I watched her suffer with mental health challenges, with physical health challenges. And, she did it quietly suffering, never really talking a lot. But she was the leader of our family, right? And for me, I think that really developed the core, the essence for me of what leadership was going to be for me for the rest of my life.
Wow. It's amazing. And you saw early signs of isolation. Like you said, she was the leader of
Yeah.
your family, if you think of it in that way.
Yeah.
And so I can see why this topic is near and dear to your heart for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that because again, as I said to everyone, daily basis, you are coaching CEOs. And when I said to you, what's something you're just seeing a lot of, especially post-pandemic,
Yeah.
you immediately answered and said, JT, it's isolation
Mhm.
because I'm seeing it both at home and at work. Talk us through that.
Yeah. Isolation shows up for leaders in so many different ways. For me, it showed up in ways burying myself into work, having a mindset that I was the only person struggling with what I was struggling. I had to bury my head down and be fully committed to what I was doing. And I let that story, right, of self-sacrifice and being alone drive me to a place where I actually wasn't the leader I wanted to be. Right. I wasn't the parent anymore that I wanted to be. And I wasn't the wife I wanted to be. It affects you 360 degrees.
Mm-hmm. I love that you say that. In fact,
Yeah.
you gave me a quote and it blew my mind, which was when you hear a CEO saying, I can't talk about it with the people above me. I can't talk about it with the people below me. And I can't talk about it with the people I love. There's no one to talk to. I'm going to raise my hand high. My low point, because I think I understand this concept so well, because of course, in my own CEO journey, that moment where that's exactly what you felt like, even though you're surrounded by people, right? Workers, coworkers, everything, that's exactly what it felt like. And
Yeah.
you must hear this so much. I'm curious how you even get this out of people, that they
Yeah.
admit it.
I don't know that they admit it, but they feel it, right? And their symptoms, the way that isolation manifests for people is so different. For me, it manifested in becoming somebody different than I wanted to be. And I really had to be faced with that in a pretty significant way. Someone who loved me, really showed me, you're not who I married, quite frankly.
Tell us
But
more. Dive us in, because I mean, I want to hear your isolation story.
Yeah, I became married to my job, and it was almost like I was having an affair with my job, and I was isolating myself away from the things that were most important to my life. And then I was not leading in the way I wanted to lead. So I've made many leadership mistakes. And for me, that drives me to do what I do now. So you said, how did I get from, being a leader to coaching leaders? Well, I became something I didn't want to become. I was leading in an unsustainable and unhealthy way. And there is a better way to lead. And through coaching, I found that. And so to me, that totally turned the light on for me. Like, wow, there's a better way to do this. And can I bring people to that better way sooner in their careers than I certainly found it for myself? And I'm driven to help leaders achieve what is most important to them, whether that's in work or in life, but in a healthy and sustainable way for them.
Yeah. It's amazing that you say that. You know, we live in a time right now where I think it's shifting, but there has been this whole, badge of honor, which is, the CEO works the most hours, cares the most about the business, is
Mhm.
responsible for everything. You've chosen to
Right.
take on this role, and yes, at the sacrifice at other things. And I think it's interesting that you were awoken by that. Was
Mhm.
there someone specifically that came to you and said, you need coaching, or was there a moment where you realized coaching is what I need to do here?
I'd say there was both. I visited a peer group, honestly, just out of curiosity. And I walked into that and I had no idea what I was going to walk into. And I was surrounded by people who, to me, were very impressive people, leaders in their, big companies, impressive titles. And they were challenged with the same things that I was too afraid to talk about, of course, but challenged with the same things that I was facing. And the amount of honesty and vulnerability that they shared with each other, I thought, "Oh my god, this is where I need to be." And then the ability of the person that was creating this space for these leaders to come to, I thought, "Wow, that's who I wanna be for these leaders. I need it, and then I wanna create it." It was just it was this dual moment for me.
I love it. I love that story. And it really shows, by the way, in your coaching, I just have
Yeah,
to say. So let's
yeah,
talk about the three signs, because you said to me there are very, very clear signs
yeah.
that CEO isolation is costing you. Let's get into the first one. Tell us a little bit about this. Your thought about work are racing. You're worrying, you're reviewing situations, past, present, and future,
Yep.
over and over again in your head. Like, talk more to this.
This one really manifests for people when I think they don't have that place to talk to. When you that quote you said, "I can't talk here, I can't talk here, I can't talk here." I can think about Suzanne as a beautiful CEO that I coached, and for her, isolation was these racing thoughts, this restlessness. She was never at home anywhere. And early in our sessions, most of what we were talking about was ruminating over all of these decisions that she had already made, or really worrying about the future, these what if scenarios. And she was stuck in the middle, right? So she had owners that had tasked her with taking the company to a new place, but didn't get a lot of support. And she had a team that wasn't quite on board. So again, there she is in the middle, isolated. She can't talk up, she can't talk down. Where is she? She's stuck. And so she is just spinning her wheels. And for her, that isolation was just this, I can't turn it off because I have no outlet for it.
Mm, amazing.
Yeah.
I I it's unfortunate that people get put in that position, because they also say, I was put in this position because they think I can do it.
Hmm.
So I have to find the solution myself,
Yes.
because otherwise I look like a failure. Um, the second one I personally experienced, I think when I really knew isolation was hitting me hardest, was this one, which is you're being blindsided by issues you didn't see coming. It
Yes.
literally felt like every day I would
Mm.
wake up and go, what's going to hit me next?
Yeah.
And it's like waves, like you're out in the middle of nowhere. Tell
Yeah.
us more about that.
You're just getting rocked back and forth. It's like things are happening to you, right? And you're not in control of things. Yeah. This reminds me of Jackie. So Jackie, one of my favorite leaders I ever coached, she stepped into a family business. Very skilled financially, operationally. She had a plan for this business, but what she didn't have a plan for was the leadership team, the relationships. She was isolated from her team that was meant to be her closest, her team number one, right?
Mhm.
And so she was really getting blindsided by personnel issues, right? So she thought things were sort of just fine. And she was isolated from the reality of what these relationships really were, what they looked like, the true nature of how her team felt about what was
Mhm.
going on, about how she was doing. And when you're not connecting with your top talent, when you're isolated from them, they'll leave,
Yep.
right? And so she was blindsided by people. She just had a lot of turnover, right?
Mhm.
And so that really hit her hard. That was a challenging one.
Those are the moments where you're literally going, should I keep going?
She
Right?
definitely she literally, like, just as you said that, she asked that question, like, "Am I the right leader for this?
Mhm.
Should I have taken over this business as a family business?
Right.
Should I have done this?" She was really questioning herself.
Oh, it's amazing. All right,
Yeah.
let's look at the third one. And folks, if you're sitting here going, I even have one of them, then you need to stay and listen because the good news is Kirsten's going to give us some solutions to this. But here's the third one. You're you're coping, and I just realized that I spelt that wrong. So we're gonna have a good laugh about that one, everyone out there. You're coping in unhealthy ways, clearly overworked. You zone out with technology or self-soothe with something like alcohol. Interesting. So
Yeah.
can't shut it off, is what you're saying. Yes?
Yeah, you're not getting it out again, and so you're trying to deaden it, deafen it, right? It probably could connect with
Mhm.
number 1 with that restlessness. So I think about, this leader, Robert, in another state that I coached, and he was in a leadership team, right? Not the leader yet in a company, and spent decades in this company, well thought of, respected. And he became selected as the CEO for this company. So in a succession plan. So he moved from peer, trusted, coworker to boss, right? And how many of us have done this? I did this about 10 times. I went from the bottom rung to the top rung of an organization. Okay. This is a really challenging situation to go from peer and coworker, trusted, confidant, right, to boss.
Mhm.
It was going well for a while, and then because of his new role, he really started to see his direct reports in a different way, right? He's now working on the business instead of in the business, and their performance
Mhm.
was now kind of a stumbling block, right?
Mhm.
Starting to see these people in a very different light, and that just started to eat at him. Couldn't talk with them about it, in the same way that he used to be able to. And so that isolation coped with that isolation, I guess I should say, in just a really unhealthy way. Gained 20
Mhm.
pounds in 6 months, started drinking, right?
Yeah.
And these are the things we ended up having to talk about, not necessarily the performance, but just how do we healthily cope with the feelings that come up when we're isolated? Isolation, I believe, is in every leadership role that exists. If you are a leader, you are isolated. It just doesn't have to be to the level where it's destructive.
I love that you say that because I do think that there's just, again, there's general assumption out there that leaders have to sacrifice, and health is just
Mhm.
one of those places you see it all the time. Like you said,
Yeah.
not enough sleep. So they're eating more, drinking, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
when you called it self soothing, that, I
Yeah.
think that kind of scares people because they probably think that they're doing something good for themselves, right?
Well, temporarily it feels good, but long term, what are the consequences is it really bringing us closer to the person we wanna be if we're doing those behaviors long term? Like,
Mhm.
in the short term, sure, they're relief, right? We get a temporary relief, but if we think about that as a cycle, it's not kind of making the true issue going away, it's just making the bad feeling temporarily going away. So if we have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture and what's really gonna work on the bigger issue here, it's not going to be a relief behavior. It's going to be a move towards something that is more valuable to you.
I love it. A move towards fixing isolation. So, with that in mind, let's talk about this. You do have 4 ways to break isolation. Walk us through these.
Yeah. So a lot of research behind a couple of these, and I'll say just off the top, nothing is always going to work for everything, right? So I'll just say off the top, something will work for somebody, but it's not going to be the same for everybody. So I work from a very functional, contextual framework. So something will work for you, but it's going to be different than what will work for somebody else.
Mhm.
Okay. So these four are quick on here. First one, be the CEO of your energy and your body, right? Your energy level comes from your physical activity. And if you have a low physical activity, then your endorphins and your energy level are all going to be low. And that's going to be your starting point. So we want to amp up that starting point. And it's counterintuitive because I'm asking you to put more in your day when you're probably overworked. But there's a lot of research behind exercise and its effect on your mindset and your ability to be focused and sharp and all of that, right? Second is sleep. It's my second go-to area. A lot of research behind knowledge workers and executives needing more sleep than people who don't do that level of work, right? Our brain is working harder, and so it needs more sleep. And so there's a lot out there on getting more quality and quantity of sleep. That's beyond today's talk. The second is or the third, excuse me, when we're so engrossed in work, and I lived number three out completely. When we're so engrossed in work and when we have young families and things like that, we make no time for anything else. And we turn off this creative part of our body. And so I really believe that the people that are the healthiest CEOs I see make time for something that is creative, something that is outside of their work industry or focus. And it's using creative energy. We all have different types of energy. It's using their creative energy in some way because it's going to just tap a completely different part of their brain, and they're going to get to use that energy throughout the rest of their day.
Mm.
And the last one, I think it had threads throughout a few of our stories that we shared today, which is finding that challenge network, finding that place where you can go. The experience I had, you walk in and you see these other leaders with no armor on, sharing their experiences, and you can have that safe place where you're accepted, where you can talk about these things and you're challenged. Because when you're the boss, guess what? Nobody says boo to you. And that's not okay either. That means you are not coming to your best conclusions. So you both want that support and that challenge. And I think that's the fourth one for most people.
I would agree. Yeah, I would. And honestly, I can look at all of those and say every single one of them was
Right,
vital to me
sounds
getting
like
back
it.
to a place, right, where I felt I was, I don't have all the answers, but back to where you felt like yourself again, for
Oh,
sure.
yes, yes.
So I have a couple of additional questions I'm going to put you on the spot about, Kirsten, because I think that people are listening to this right now and saying, "Oh, this sounds like me." So
Yeah.
what happens? You talked about a CEO peer group, especially Vistage, you run CEO peer groups. Walk me through the process. How does somebody start this journey to potentially explore working with a company like Vistage?
Yeah. So the first is an exploratory call it could be with somebody who is a Vistage chair like myself. It could also be a Vistage member. I tend to like connecting people with current members because you get a real honest view of what the value is. Um, One of the things I like to say is, those people, you've all had a boss in the past, right, who was micromanaging you or, did a lot of things that you didn't really like and you didn't like to work for them. We're the people that tell them that stuff, right? So that's what my job. I don't have an elevator speech, but that's kind of the explanation, right?
Mhm.
So, to get started, you have to be willing to hear that stuff about yourself.
Mhm.
So if you're open to that, there's 100 ways to get connected. Go to the website, call somebody that's in Vistage. There's more people in Vistage than you would think. And, be open to that conversation.
I think it's so important you said that, but I also feel like CEOs and executives by their nature seek out the
Mhm.
feedback. They want the answers, but they want it in a private setting. So
Yeah.
my follow-up question is, the one-on-ones make total sense, the time they get to spend with you as the Vistage chair. But what's that experience like inside a group? Walk me through what a group meeting's like.
So in a group meeting, there's a secret handshake. No, I'm kidding. In a group meeting, it is Vegas. What happens there stays there, and that's super important because the people that come need to trust that what they're sharing is going to stay there. And so people get. It's nice to hear from me, right? But I'm one set of perspective. I'm one leadership journey that I'm giving you. When you come into a group, you have 12 to 15 perspectives. That's now 2 to 300 years of leadership experience that you can say, here's the problem I'm facing. Who's done it, hasn't done it, wants to do it, did it well, did it poorly. And you'll get 12 to 15 different questions about it,
Mhm.
answers about it, ideas about it. And so, one, it's multiple perspectives. Two, none of those people have any agenda about you except we've all agreed to come in here together to give
Mhm.
something and to get something, right? And so there is camaraderie, there is care based challenge for each other. And there's in mine, there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of love.
It's so funny. There's a saying in franchising that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Yeah.
And it's literally what I think of when you explain this.
Mm.
Because as CEOs, we're this isolation you talked about, you don't have to do it by yourself, is what you're saying
Right.
with this model, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Folks, I want to bring this up so that you can see it. You can find Kirsten Yorick on LinkedIn. Please head over there, find her, follow her. By the way, she is dropping incredible videos in her LinkedIn feed, so you should absolutely follow her, but also direct message her and tell her that you saw her here on Executive Table Talk, especially if you want to have a discovery call to learn more about what it's like to be part of a Vistage group or even Kirsten's Vistage group. I think that's really important. But I want to bring it back to you and just say closing thoughts to everyone out there that's dealing with this and is now fully admitting they're sitting there in isolation.
Acknowledging it that you have it is the first step, but knowing that everyone has it makes it maybe not so scary. And just reach out to somebody and say, I feel this. How about you? Or, call up a local leader and have a cup of coffee. I think we can solve this problem, certainly with formal coaching. And sure, that's amazing. And it's my job. But I also think we can solve this one coffee at a time, leader to leader.
I love it. Kirsten Yurick, thank you so much. So happy to have you here. Folks, remember, if you want to win, you got to work it daily. So come back next time, okay? See you soon.